We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, the podcast where we dive into the art of songwriting, celebrate the artists behind the music and explore the stories that bring their songs to life. I'm your host, Simon Fink, and thank you for joining us. Our guest on the podcast today is one of Australia's most promising new indie rock artists. It is Total Tommy. Based in Sydney, Total Tommy creates upbeat indie rock, grunge and gothic pop that all blends with heartfelt, honest and sublime lyrical moments. She's shared the stage with acts like Teen Jesus and the Gene Teasers and has earned praise from the likes of NME, The Line of Best Fit, BBC Radio, FBI Radio, the list goes on and more. Over the weekend, Total Tommy unveiled her debut record, Bruises, which is a stunning collection of melodic indie-grunge classics that showcase her incredible talent. Now, in today's episode, we're chatting with Total Tommy about Bruises and the honest, raw nature of her songwriting. We discuss why she prefers to create and compose in large, immersive blocks of time rather than in smaller sessions, and we explore her creative partnership with Mark Zito from Fractures, diving into why their collaboration works so well. We also talk about the buzz surrounding her music and what fans can look forward to on her upcoming tour. Now, we want to thank Charlotte for her help with today's episode and remind everyone that Bruises is out right now. You'll find links in the show notes on where you can purchase a vinyl or grab tickets to Total Tommy's tour, which is taking place later this week. While you're in the show notes, don't forget to follow us across all of our social media channels and check out our website to stay up to date with all of our future guests and episodes. And with that, let's jump into our conversation with Total Tommy. Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, Jess Holt, aka Total Tommy. Jess, hello, welcome. How are you today?
Hi, I'm so good. I had my first day off in quite a long time actually today, so I'm feeling nice and relaxed.
That is lovely to hear. Hopefully you've been able to just, stop and recharge after what I imagine is a very, very busy time for you at the moment.
Yeah, it's been wild. It's been so busy the last few weeks, but really, really fun, like heaps of shows. And then obviously the album came out and then, today I got to kind of just soak it all in because sometimes you forget to have those moments,
100%. I think sometimes taking stock really allows you to actually properly digest what is going on and acknowledge it and be able to not just kind of have it as a memory that you haven't almost even really allowed to I keep using the word digest, but I guess digest is probably the best way to use, the best word to use.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely it. Because it's like, if you don't take a moment, you kind of just keep going and forget to acknowledge like how fun things are and all the hard work that went into it,
Exactly. The debut record that we are kind of referring to and talking about is Bruises. It is out right now. It came out over the weekend. Firstly, congratulations. This is the debut record. I imagine that there's probably a multitude of feelings going on at the moment. How are you feeling specifically with the album coming out and with it being out in the world for people to enjoy?
Feeling good. There's a few tracks on that record that I wanted people to hear that, weren't the singles. So I've been really excited for people to kind of get into it as like a full record. So feeling good, really happy with the response as well, actually. Didn't know what to expect. Never released an album before, so it's been good.
Well, I'm glad to hear that it has been positive thus far. It is a fantastic record, so congratulations on this gorgeous record. Of course, sonically it is gorgeous. It kind of goes through, I want to say, a bit of a journey of like indie rock. There's a little bit of grunge. There's a little bit of a few lighter moments, which I want to kind of get into in a little bit as well regarding the sonics. But I know that like any great debut record, it's obviously the culmination of many things that have happened to you, maybe even throughout your entire life. So there's not been a record before this. This is kind of like the biggest piece of work that you have put out. And this one, I know that there was a number of changes, a number of big kind of things going on while you're recording the record in the last 2 years. Moving city, I believe, maybe some heartbreak, a few other items that we don't really have to get into the granular detail about. But for you, being your first album and writing about such heavy things, what was that approach like? Because I imagine it can be difficult to write about, your honest feelings or how you're kind of sitting with a certain kind of emotion at the best of times, let alone for your first record.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I feel really lucky because I decided to start a new project. So nobody was really waiting or expecting anything from me. They didn't even know Tommy existed at this point. So I really got to take my time, and I feel like a lot of artists, and now myself included, won't get that luxury of time anymore, because once you kind of start releasing, you have to keep going. But yeah, I just had this amazing few years, which, went through heaps of changes in myself, and also just working out what I wanted to make and what I wanted to say and what sound I wanted to carry and all of this stuff. And yeah, I spent so much time figuring it out. And then it sort of clicked. Microdose was the first song that it clicked on. And then, yeah, I spent the rest of the time just writing and making it a record before I even released a song. So it was fun.
What was that? What was that process like in terms of finding your sound? Because I imagine that for any artist, it's always sometimes a tricky kind of balancing act of being true to themselves and not maybe thinking what they think is popular or what's in trend, but working out what is the best sound for them and the project. What was that process like for you? Because I think that this, from an outsider's perspective, it has clicked perfectly. These songs really seem to resonate quite well with audiences. So I'm curious for you how you kind of came across what you thought was the sound for the Total Tommy project.
Yeah. Well, I guess I grew up listening to a lot of kind of 90s grungy stuff, and I always loved it, and it was always in my bones. And then I sort of moved away from that for a little while, and was really into piano driven things and a bit more poppy kind of stuff. But I guess at heart I've always been a pop writer. No matter what, even if I played with other genres, my writing is my top line melodies and lyrics. It's pop, But yeah, pairing that with guitars and grungy stuff that was kind of in me as well, that's when it started to really click. And, at the time, a couple of years ago when I started writing, everyone was like, grunge isn't in, no one's going to care about grunge music. And then weirdly, it's having this crazy, amazing time at the moment. There's so many great people making amazing, grungy, rocky, indie, shoegazy music. So yeah, it's good.
I absolutely love that. And I think that almost kind of, it does work to the whole, you can't usually play to what is in trend if it's not at least true to yourself. Obviously the fact that you took a chance on the sound that you wanted to take, and obviously it has worked because it is finding a lot of love around a lot of different areas. I'm seeing a lot of different publications reporting on the Total Tommy project. I believe you're the Apple Music Australia Artist of the Month or whatever they're kind of I think, is that what it's called?
Apple up next, I think it's called.
That's the one, yes. Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a big one. That was really exciting when that came through, when my team told me. That's cool.
Have you been surprised by the reaction to the songs or to the project?
I think so, because I've been so close to it for so long. So it was hard to sort of have perspective, I guess, on that. But we have been playing so many shows this year. So seeing people connect with it, we started playing shows when I had one song out. So I was literally playing to a room of people who had never heard of me with songs they'd never heard. So that was cool to see the reaction. And I was like, okay, cool. I think this is going to be something good. And yeah, it's been nice to grow it that way.
I absolutely love that. For yourself, what has that songwriting process been like over the last 2 years? Are you, I know you kind of spoke to your strengths as a top line writer, or melody is, I guess, what is that process usually like? Are you someone who sits down and actively tries to find inspiration, or you might, maybe the opposite, maybe inspiration strikes at whatever time and you kind of have to write it down, jot it down, voice memos filled into the phone?
Yeah, a lot of that. I was working really closely with my friend Mark, he produced most of my record. So that would be cool because we'd have, fixed days where we'd work together, but there'd also be times where I'd, send him like a little guitar thing I was working on with like the melody and vocal over it, being like, I want it to sound like this. And then we'd work back and forth. He's in Melbourne, I'm in Sydney. So we'd kind of work remotely. And it was this really great way of working for me because I could just do it when I was free and when I was actually at home. And sometimes you do like writing sessions and, you know, it's Tuesday, 9 a.m. and you're not particularly feeling inspired. So like sitting on our work, I could just be like, cool, it's 10 p.m. on a Thursday night and I feel like writing, and I could work on it then and just sort of pick away at it when I felt like it. Because I don't know, I write well in chunks. I don't really write well like a little bit here, a little bit there. Like I love to just do it in a big block when I can. So towards the end of the record, I was doing it in like pretty hefty chunks. So it was good.
I was very curious about the working relationship with Mark. For people who might not know who we're talking about Mark Zito of the project Fractures, who does make somewhat more, well, at least compared to Total Tommy, maybe more synth kind of based music, somewhat electronic in different parts of it.
Yeah.
And so I was semi-surprised to hear that when listening to the record and kind of try and work out what the link may be, or I guess how that kind of works. What was the the catalyst for getting Mark involved, or like how did you work out that although two totally different sonic projects, that the working relationship kind of made this beautiful product that we now have?
Yeah, I mean, Mark and I have been writing together for like 6 years or something crazy. He worked on my old project really closely, and we always just had this amazing connection and way of working. He's super honest if something's not working with, you know, a song, and so am I. And he's also he grew up, you know, loving indie music. So this kind of felt super natural for him when I was like, this is what I want to do. And we did like the first session together, and Soda was the first song we wrote. And it was, at the time, it was going to be like my last project, but it just kind of changed so much. And then I was like, I think this is for this new thing I'm working on. And then we sort of like together honed what this sound was and like came up with it all together. So yeah, it was super collaborative. He's great.
I do love that. Well, yeah, the end result has been this fantastic kind of collection of songs. Was there much discussion on the sonics going into the album in terms of what you wanted to cover or what you wanted to achieve? I know that there's quite a lot of great indie rock tracks across this record. And then there's also little shades of, lighter and darker moments of indie rock and kind of other elements as well. I think what track was it? It was Spider, which was a little bit heavier, a little bit grungier. And then on the flip side of that was the closing track, Shark Attacks, which is this like beautiful, fragile, I don't even know what to kind of call it. It's not a ballad, but it is maybe the opposite of a lot of things on this record. When you went in, I guess, was that discussed of how you wanted to have different shades of the sonic palette for Total Tommy?
Yeah, I think at first it was like making, like, I don't know, the first couple of songs that came were sort of clearly like singles and that, and I didn't want to make a record full of singles. I just didn't want to do that. So I was really conscious of like, you have a side A and a side B to a record, and I like each side is, so like, you know, Ribs closes off side A and Shark Attacks closes off side B. And I wanted it to be a real journey, and like the track listing order took ages because I wanted it to be like straight in, but I also, you know, wanted to have that light and shade, and my favorite records do that. So yeah, it was like always a big aim.
I love that. Are you able to maybe give us some insight into what some of those records are that influenced you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, at the time, there was a lot of like Bikini Kill and Hole and Garbage and stuff going on. I don't know if it was particularly like the full records, but just in like general, I guess. Clara's record a few years ago, Immunity, that was just as a record to me, that was amazing because it just had everything in it, you know, and it's like a record I still come back to now. I think that came out like 6 years ago or something now. So that was a big like current modern day reference that I loved. And like Rufus Wainwright, weirdly, I mean, it's completely different music to what I make, but it's just such a timeless record that every time I'd be like, is this lyric good? You go and listen to Rufus and chances are like you need to work a lot harder.
I would not have guessed Rufus being in that list of kind of influences, but I can kind of see it. And it is I think as someone who is a fantastic lyricist, you've obviously focused on people who know how to construct certain words or construct certain sentences in a way that are well thought out and not just kind of not throw away. But I think in indie rock as well, sometimes there are moments where people, maybe for the sake of a catchy sing-along or something else, might place certain words there. And I feel like that this has been a much more thought-out project. No disrespect to other indie rock pursuers.
Yeah, absolutely. I just actually wrote a post on this on my Instagram, like just as I went to speak to you. But yeah, like every lyric I wrote on this record, I wanted to imagine like people singing it back. And if the criteria wasn't, would you be comfortable like singing this in a crowd? Is it cool? Like, does it feel good? Does it make you feel something? Then it couldn't go on the record. So everything was like very much with a crowd and like live in mind, which made me work a lot harder because it couldn't just be dumb, you know?
Oh, 100%. Especially if you do want that crowd engagement, you have to work out what's going to be sung back to you. And as you said, sometimes I've found myself in a crowd trying to sing along to the lyrics and then realizing, like, and part of my language, what the fuck are these lyrics? What am I singing back?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, yeah. And if it doesn't like resonate with you or make you feel something, then you're just like, whatever. I mean, I've definitely got like, there's one song on the record that is dumb, Amsterdam. It's so silly. Like the lyrics, I was always like, I'm going to change those. And I didn't, but I actually love them now. That's like the one exception to that rule.
I think that you're always allowed to have at least one or two outliers. If it was an album full of those, we might be having a very different conversation, but yeah. I can appreciate you need one or two of them.
Yeah.
Curious if you might be able to share, I guess, what originally got you into lyric writing and songwriting back in the day. I think I did read somewhere that you were self-taught as a musician, or at least guitar.
Yeah, I taught myself guitar. I did have lessons at one point, but I was mostly self-taught. I sort of just wanted to be able to play. I didn't really want to do the scales. I didn't really want to learn the theory, which, you know, I've reverse engineered now. I've gone back and like learned that because it is quite necessary. But most of what I do always has been intuitive, just whether it feels good. You know, there's been songs over the years that I've written that don't even really have a key. They like waver so much, but they work, you know? So it's just like feel and intuition, I guess. But yeah, lyric writing for me started because, I don't know, I feel like it's like such a subconscious thing. So I'd be like journaling and stuff like that. And then I'd process so much while I was doing that, like writing about things I didn't even realize I needed to process. And songs have always been like that for me as well. Like months later, I'll be like, oh, that was about this. And it's like, it makes perfect sense in the song, but it didn't in my brain at the time. So it's like, it's a funny thing. Yeah.
We've recently spoken to a lot of songwriters on this podcast in relation to similar experiences of terms of not premonitions, but also just kind of being able to work out how you're feeling and then months later going, oh, okay, that was me processing this, or that was me recognizing this wasn't good for me, or whatever it is. So it is a bit of an interesting, not even process, it is just like a fascinating thing that the brain does, I imagine, especially from your perspective when you have that moment of realization.
Yeah, it's so crazy. It's really bizarre. Like there's some songs, there's one on the record that I don't even remember writing now because it just like took over me. And I think I wrote the song in like 2 hours, but I just don't remember doing it. But I did. Like I was there. I was physically there. I don't remember. So it's a funny thing sometimes. Are
you able to share what track it is that you don't remember?
Yeah, it's Shark Attacks.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it all makes sense. But I couldn't tell you when or where or like how that came about. It's just one of those ones that kind of wrote itself, which people always say. And I was always like, what does that mean? Songwriters being like, this song just wrote itself, blah, blah. But that actually, for me, is an example of one that did. Yeah.
Well, look, the fact that it happens, like, it does happen to a number of people. What is the saying? Like they're a conduit or they're like a vessel for it. But It seems to be something that totally happens. So you can talk to that now, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. And I think it's really fun experimenting that way, especially like doing it when you are by yourself and you can kind of just have that moment. I think, writing in a session or with other people, sometimes in the moment you're a bit more like scared to show your cards and stuff like that. So yeah, there was a few nights where I'd just like drink wine by myself at home and like have a beautiful time and write stuff. And like, that's sort of my favorite way to write because it's so therapeutic.
I absolutely love that. That's so cool. Thank you very much for sharing that. I was hoping that you might be able to share a little bit more. I might be a little bit selfish in doing this. Hoping that you might be able to talk to me about my favourite track on the record. Very close to the end of the record, there's a track called Girlfriend. Beautiful kind of like upbeat indie song, talks very opportunistically about love, and hoping you might be able to share, I guess, either what inspired it or kind of how the track came about.
I'm so happy you like that one because that was like one of the first ones I wrote as well. So about 3 years ago. That song, I'd just seen Tegan and Sarah live. I think it was, I can't remember where, but they were big for me growing up. And then they have a song called Closer, which the chorus is just like so anthemic. And I saw it live and I was like, I want an anthemic song. Like I want to write something that's got like the call and response thing. But also I just like, I was like in a newish relationship at the time. And it was like lesbians go from like 0 to 100. And it was just like kind of a parody on how like crazy amazing that can be. So it was like, all I can think about is this person, So it was like, it's like a bit of a parody in a way, that song. But yeah, it was a lot of fun actually to write. And I cracked that one really quickly as well, I think. I just had my tonsils out and I was on like some pretty heavy painkillers and I was just hyper focusing in the studio that night. And yeah, that song like worked.
Look, I absolutely love that as well. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad that obviously these songs and the quality of the songwriting across the record seemed to come easy to you, which I kind of love as well. Very, very excited to see how, I guess, audiences and the people of Australia and the people of the world react to this record and how they kind of take it in and make it their own. Because I think that this is going to be an album that we're going to see a lot of growth for in 2025, if that makes sense. I know that we're at the end of the year now, and I think this is going to be a record that continues to grow and grow as these next 6 to 12 months kind of play out. I know that there's a handful of tour dates in support of the record, I believe later this week, across Sydney, Victoria, Brisbane. Curious how you're feeling, I guess, what fans can expect from these shows.
Yeah, we start on Thursday in Newcastle and Melbourne on Saturday. So they're the first two. And yeah, they're really small rooms, which will be fun because the last few like tours we've done, which have been support tours, we've played really big rooms, but I love small, sweaty rooms and it's going to be warm, I think. Like it's summer now, so it's going to be warm. But yeah, putting like heaps of new songs in the set from the record that people haven't heard. Really excited to play Ribs live because our set's so upbeat. So then having like a smaller moment like that, I'm excited for. And just seeing what tracks people like on the record, I think will be really cool.
100%. I was going to ask whether there's a track you're excited to kind of debut off the record, and I imagine that from your answer it is Ribs. With that, are you looking to, I know a number of artists will kind of maybe play around with arrangements of songs or maybe instrumentation when it does come to a live setting. Is there anything that you're kind of maybe changing around this time or I guess playing with to see how it can differently fit the live kind of setting?
Yeah, we've extended out a few parts just because like some of the songs are quite short and they need to be longer live. Like I feel like once you're in, you like want to hear this like section extended. So yeah, we've extended. There's like the bridge in Amsterdam. We've got a fun little crowd moment in that, which is good. And yeah, Ribs is very different to the record, but I think it'll be cool live. First time we've done it. So yeah.
That is
actually, that's a lie. Second, we played it at the first ever show. Yeah.
Look, still very exciting that it's still going to get it's kind of like playing in the live setting. I'm curious whether and if I'm getting ahead of myself and we can't answer, please politely feel free to politely decline. We are an Adelaide-based podcast. Curious whether we might see more shows from Total Tommy in the new year in support of the record as well.
Yes, there are definitely some things planned in the new year, and hopefully Adelaide is on the cards.
Okay. Look, yeah, we'll take that. We will use that to kind of hold us over until January and Feb, and then wait to see whether we hear any more. Very exciting. Jess, we usually ask, I guess, what they're currently listening to for yourself. What's currently on high rotation?
For me, New Dad. They're a UK kind of like garagey, rocky, indie sort of band. And I saw them play at All Points East a couple months ago when I was over there, and just fell in love with their songs. They're amazing. There's one song called Where I Go, and I know that it will be like my number one Spotify Wrapped because I listen to it daily.
It is, what is it called? We had Julie from New Dad on the podcast earlier this year in support of Madra, I think is the album. But
Madra, that's it.
Fantastic
Amazing.
Record, fantastic
They're
choice.
Such great musicians, yeah.
Yeah, lovely musicians and great music, similar to yourself, great indie rock. Anyone who's listening to this podcast, slight differences in some sounds, but fantastic indie rock. Jess, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast and having a chat with us about the brand new Total Tommy record. My absolute pleasure. We'll make sure that there are links in today's show notes so that people can purchase tickets to those shows this weekend. I believe that there's some vinyl out at the moment as well for the record.
That's right. We got vinyl.
We'll make sure those links are in the show notes as well, which is fantastic. But again, thank you so much for coming to have a chat.
Thank you so much. I've had a great time. Cheers.